I didn't notice her at first. That's how most things begin for me, by not registering until they're already halfway into my routine. Tuesday nights. The laundromat 2 blocks from my apartment stayed open late. Fluorescent lights. A TV bolted to the wall that never had sound. I brought a paperback I never really read and a phone I kept face down, like it might accuse me of something if I checked it too often. That night, I was folding socks when someone said, "Those never match." I've stopped trying. I looked up, holding 2 different grays that were pretending not to be obvious about it. She was standing near the change machine. Mid-40s, maybe older. Calm face. Not smiling in a way that asked for anything. Just stating a fact. "I still think there's a system," I said. I don't know why I said that. I don't have a system. She tilted her head, watching my hands struggle with the socks. "If there is, it doesn't like being understood." She moved to the dryer next to mine. The machines rattled like they were having separate arguments. I noticed her hands first, steady, unhurried, the nails short, practical, the kind of hands that didn't waste motion. We didn't talk for a while after that. Not in a rude way. Just the kind of silence where you're both pretending you're alone but aware you aren't. When I sat on the plastic chair, she did too, leaving exactly 1 seat between us. She folded a napkin from her coffee cup, creased it, smoothed it, creased it again. I caught myself watching and looked away too late. "You live nearby?" she asked, still looking at the machines. "Up the street," I said. "3rd floor. Old building." She nodded. "I know it." Something about that landed heavier than it should have. I'd been living alone for almost a year then. Not newly single, just quietly so. My phone was full of half-typed messages I never sent. People I meant to check on. People who probably weren't waiting anymore. I'd pause before unlocking my door most nights, like I was giving myself time to think of a reason to go in. She took her clothes out first. Folded them right there, not rushing, not performing efficiency. When she finished, she held the empty basket for a second longer than necessary. "Same time next week," she said, casual, not looking at me. I laughed, a short breath more than a sound. "I'm predictable." "Most people are," she said. "They just don't like admitting it." Before she left, she hesitated. 1 foot already angled toward the door. "I'm Margaret," she said. "By the way." "Daniel," I said. Then, after a beat, "Nice to meet you." She paused like she was considering correcting me, then didn't. "Yeah," she said. "You too." I watched her leave, the door swinging shut behind her. The machines kept turning. My clothes were done, but I let them sit, heat fading. I folded slower than necessary, aligning edges that didn't need it. When I got home, my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. "It's Margaret." I realized I forgot my scarf in the dryer. "If you're still there." I stared at the screen longer than I should have, thumb hovering. The apartment felt suddenly too quiet, like it was listening. I typed back, erased it, then typed again. "Yeah, I'm still here." She was still standing by the dryers when I came back in, scarf folded over her arm like it was something fragile. "Thanks," she said. I was already halfway home when I realized. "No problem," I said. I was taking my time anyway. She smiled at that, small and quick, like she didn't want to keep it. The scarf was thin, wool, faded at the edges. It smelled faintly like soap and something warmer underneath. She wrapped it once around her neck, then stopped. "You want tea?" she asked. "I'm right upstairs." "Upstairs." I nodded before I thought about it. Her place was quieter than I expected. Not minimalist, not cluttered either. Just lived in. Shoes by the door that weren't lined up. A plant leaning toward the window like it had given up on instructions. She moved around the kitchen with the confidence of someone who knew where everything was without checking. She poured hot water, set 2 mismatched mugs on the counter. I leaned there, hands wrapped around the ceramic, feeling like I should say something meaningful and not knowing how. "You come to the laundromat late," she said. "Most people don't." "Less crowded," I said. Then, after a pause, "I don't really like being seen." She didn't look at me when she answered. "I understand that." We stood there for a while. Steam rose, fogged the window a little. She blew on her tea, then stopped. as if she'd forgotten what she was doing. I used to come here with my husband, she said. Just like that. Not dramatic. Not careful. We'd argue about whose turn it was to fold. Oh, I said. It felt like the only acceptable word. He moved out 2 years ago, she added. Different city. Different life. She shrugged, like she was talking about weather patterns. I noticed the way her shoulders settled after she said it, like something had been set down. I thought about telling her something back. About the way I still checked my phone before sleeping, even when no one was supposed to text me anymore. About how sometimes I left the TV on just to hear voices. Instead, I said, I'm bad at folding fitted sheets. She laughed. Not loud. Real. Everyone is, she said. That's universal. We sat at the small table near the window. Close, but not touching. I kept my eyes on my mug, washed a chip in the rim that someone had tried to glue once and failed. You rent the unit downstairs, right? She asked. Yeah. She nodded. I'm your landlady. There it was. Not heavy. Just stated. Oh, I said. This time it landed differently. I should have mentioned it earlier, she said. It didn't feel necessary. I imagined the lines that suddenly existed between us. Tenant. Owner. 20-something in mid-40s. The things people would quietly count. That okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. Then, softer, yeah. After that, the conversation thinned. Not awkward. Just careful. She showed me how the window stuck in winter. I offered to fix a loose cabinet hinge I'd noticed downstairs. We talked about nothing in particular. At one point, she stood behind me to reach a shelf. Her hand brushed my shoulder, barely there, like a question that didn't want an answer. She froze for half a second, then moved away. Sorry, she said. It's fine, I said too quickly. When I left, she walked me to the door. The hallway light flickered. She folded her arms, then unfolded them. Daniel, she said. About the rent. If anything ever needs fixing, you can just text me. No formalities. Okay, I said. She hesitated, then reached out and straightened the scarf at her neck. Her fingers didn't touch my skin, but I felt it anyway. Good night, she said. Night. I went downstairs, unlocked my door, and stood there longer than usual. The quiet felt different now. Not emptier. Just altered. Later, my phone buzzed again. A message from her. Tea was nice. Don't be a stranger. I stared at it, heart doing something uneven, and wondered when simple words started meaning more than they should. After that, things shifted without announcing themselves. She stopped coming to the laundromat on Tuesdays. I noticed the first week and told myself it didn't mean anything. The second week, I checked my phone halfway through the wash, thumb hovering, then didn't text. By the third, I brought my clothes home damp and hung them over chairs like I was punishing myself for expecting consistency from anyone. We still saw each other, just not accidentally anymore. She started knocking before entering my unit, even when I'd texted come in. Formal. Polite. A smile that arrived a second late. I'll be quick, she said one afternoon, clipboard tucked under her arm. Just doing routine checks. Routine. The word did more than it should have. I followed her while she pretended to inspect things she already knew were fine. The sink. The window latch. The cabinet hinge I hadn't fixed yet. You didn't have to rush, I said. She didn't answer right away. Ran her finger along the counter, like she was checking for dust that wasn't there. I've been busy, she said. Then, after a beat, my son's visiting this week. Oh, how old is he? I asked, immediately regretting it. 23, she said. The number sat between us. Too exact. Too close. She glanced at me then, something cautious in her eyes. Measuring. Reconsidering. That night, I ran into her outside the building. She was struggling with a grocery bag, oranges threatening escape. I took it from her without asking. Our hands brushed. Again that pause. Again the almost. Thanks, she said. You don't have to. I know, I said. We walked upstairs together, slower than necessary. She unlocked her door and hesitated, holding it open. You want tea? She asked. The question felt heavier this time. Inside, the place felt smaller. Or maybe we were taking up more space in it. We sat at the table again. Same mugs. Same chip in the rim. Different silence. My son thinks I'm lonely, she said suddenly. He doesn't say it. He just checks in too much. I nodded. People do that when they don't know what else to do. She watched me over the rim of her mug. What do you think I'm doing? I opened my mouth. Closed it. I don't know, I said. Honest, and not enough. She leaned back, arms crossed, creating distance she hadn't needed before. I don't want to misunderstand, she said, or be misunderstood. Me neither. But the space between us kept narrowing anyway. Chairs too close. Knees almost touching. I noticed a faint crease between her brows, like she was holding something back with effort. The doorbell rang. We both startled. She stood too fast, chair scraping. That'll be my son. Of course. I stood too, suddenly aware of where I was. Who I was to her. Who I wasn't. She walked me to the door instead of answering it. The bell rang again, louder this time. Daniel, she said. Soft. Careful. This, whatever this is, I know, I said. I didn't. She reached up, straightened my collar the way she'd done with her scarf. Her fingers lingered, not touching skin. Close enough. For a second, neither of us moved. Her breath. Mine. The space tightening, like a held note. Then she stepped back. Good night, she said. I left before either of us could say something we couldn't return from. After her son left, the building settled back into itself. I knew because the noise changed. Fewer footsteps. No laughter drifting down the stairwell. The quiet returned, but it wasn't the same quiet as before. This one felt aware of us. She texted less. Short messages. Necessary ones. Plumber coming Thursday. Rent receipt under your door. I answered just as briefly. Pretended that was normal. Pretended I hadn't started timing how long the hallway light stayed on upstairs at night. A week later, I saw her sitting on the bench across the street. The one by the small grocery store that sold bad flowers and good bread. She was alone, coat buttoned wrong, staring at nothing in particular. I almost kept walking. Hey, I said instead. She looked up like she'd been pulled out of water. Oh, hi. I sat at the far end of the bench. Left space. Too much of it. You waiting for someone? I asked. She shook her head. Just needed air. We watched a man struggle with a cart full of boxes. Someone dropped coins. A bus hissed, then moved on. You didn't say goodbye, I said, not accusing. Just factual. My son, she asked. No. To me. She folded her hands in her lap. Unfolded them. Then folded them again the other way. I didn't know how, she said. That was when it hit me. Not all at once. More like a pressure finally finding a weak point. I saw you with someone, I said. The word surprised me by existing. Last night. Outside. She blinked. You mean Mark? I know, I said quickly. I don't mean. Jealousy wasn't the right word. It was smaller. Quieter. The feeling you get when you realize you're not in the room where decisions are made. He's my age, she said gently. That's all you're thinking. I didn't answer. She exhaled slow. This is why I pulled back. Because of what people might think. I asked. No, she said. Because of what I think. She turned toward me then. Really looked. Not the cautious version she'd been using lately. You don't know what you want yet, she said. And I've already lived the part where I pretend I don't. The words weren't sharp. That somehow made them worse. I'm not pretending, I said. I know, she said. That's the problem. We sat there, shoulders angled toward each other now despite ourselves. Her knee brushed mine when she shifted. Neither of us moved away. I think about you more than I should, she said. It came out quieter than everything else. I notice when your lights are on late. I wonder if you've eaten. I tell myself it's just concern. I swallowed. And I don't trust that version of myself, she said. The streetlight flickered. She flinched like it had said something personal. I don't want to take something from you, she continued. Time. Options. Simplicity. You're not taking anything, I said. I'm choosing. She smiled then. Sad. Fond. Like she'd heard that line before and remembered where it led. You think that, she said. Right now. I turned to her fully. What do you think? She didn't answer immediately. Watched a couple cross the street, hands brushing, not holding. I think if I let this go any further, she said, I won't know how to stop it. My heart did something unsteady. Hope and warning sharing the same space. I reached out without planning to. Stopped halfway. My hand hovered near hers, close enough to feel warmth. She noticed. Didn't pull away. If I asked you to come upstairs right now, she said softly, what would you think that meant? The question sat between us. Open. Unfinished. I didn't know which answer scared me more, the one I wanted to give, or the one she was hoping I wouldn't. And she waited. After that night on the bench, she went quiet in a way that felt intentional. Not busy. Not distracted. Chosen. The hallway light upstairs stopped clicking on late. Her footsteps disappeared from my mental map of the building. When something needed fixing, she sent a contractor instead of coming herself. When I texted thanks, she replied with a thumbs up. No words. I told myself it was temporary, that we both needed a moment to reset the edges of things. I told myself not to read into it. I still read into it. I stopped timing the light and started taking longer routes home. I skipped Tuesdays at the laundromat entirely. Took my clothes to a place across town that smelled like bleach and impatience. I folded fast. Didn't look up. A week passed. Then another. I saw her car one evening, parked crooked like it always was. For a second, relief rushed in. Uninvited, too strong. I almost went upstairs. Almost knocked. My hand even reached the rail before I remembered how she'd asked that question on the bench. How carefully she'd waited. I went inside instead. The next morning, a note was slipped under my door. I'm raising the rent next quarter. I'll send the formal notice soon. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just logistics. I stared at the paper longer than necessary, like more words might appear if I waited. That night, I ran into Mark outside the building. I recognized him immediately. He looked comfortable there in a way I wasn't. Familiar. He nodded at me like we were part of the same routine. Hey, he said. You live downstairs, right? Yeah. She mentioned you, he said. Not in a way that accused. Just stated. Oh, I said. She's been dealing with a lot, he added. Trying to make some changes. Changes. The word followed me upstairs, then back down. A few days later, I finally saw her again. At the grocery store. She was standing in the bread aisle, holding 2 loaves like she couldn't decide which version of herself she was buying for. Hi, I said. She turned, surprised. Really surprised this time. Hi. We stood there, blocking the aisle. People moved around us like water. You okay? I asked. She nodded too quickly. Yes. Just reorganizing. Selling the building? I asked. The question escaped before I could weigh it. She flinched. Not dramatically. Just enough. I didn't want to burden you with that yet, she said. Nothing's final. Yet. So you're leaving? I said. Maybe, she said. Eventually. She picked 1 loaf and put the other back. Decision made or postponed. I should have said something sooner, she added. I didn't know how without making it something. It already was, I said. She looked at me then, really looked. The same careful attention she used when adjusting scarves or collars. The kind that meant remembering. I went back to therapy, she said quietly. After the bench. I nodded. Okay. And my ex called, she continued. Not to come back. Just to check in. It stirred things. I get it, I said, though I wasn't sure I did. She shifted her weight. Mark is safe. There it was. Not a confession. Not a choice. Just a fact placed gently between us. I waited for something else. An apology. A reach. A question. None came. I don't regret meeting you, she said instead. I regret not knowing what to do with it. I wanted to tell her I'd have figured it out. That I could be patient. That age and timing were just numbers people hid behind when they were scared. I wanted to say a lot of things. I said, okay. She smiled, faint. You're good at that. We said goodbye in the bread aisle. Polite. Contained. I watched her walk away, loaf tucked under her arm like a conclusion. That night, I typed a message. I don't need safe. I just need honest. I stared at it. Read it out loud once. Then deleted it. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next Tuesday, I went back to the old laundromat. Same machine, same chair. I folded slowly, deliberately. The seat beside me stayed empty. I found her at my door on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of quiet hour where the building seemed half asleep. I hadn't heard her come down the stairs. Just the knock, measured, not urgent. The sound of someone who would accept whatever happened next. When I opened it, she was holding an envelope. Not a legal one. Just paper, folded once. Her name written on the front in handwriting I recognized from notes under my door. "Hi," she said. "Hi." We stood there too long. The hallway smelled faintly of cleaner. Somewhere, a radio played softly through a wall. "I should have mailed this," she said. But I kept not. I stepped aside without thinking. She hesitated, then came in. My place looked the same as always. Couch slightly off-center. A mug in the sink from that morning. She took it in like she was cataloging things she might forget. "I won't stay long," she said. "You can," I said. Then, after a beat, "Stay as long as you want." She nodded, like she was filing that away rather than acting on it. We stood in the kitchen, close enough that I could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, close enough to notice she'd changed perfume or stopped wearing it. "The building sale is real," she said. "I found a buyer." "Okay," I said. "I wanted you to hear it from me," she added. "Not a notice. Not someone else." She handed me the envelope. Inside was a letter. Not formal. Personal. Explaining timelines. Apologizing in a way that didn't use the word. "You don't have to read it now," she said. "I want to," I said. "Just later." She leaned back against the counter. Crossed her ankles. The posture of someone bracing for honesty. "I pulled away because I was scared," she said. "Not of you. Of myself. Of how easy it felt to imagine rearranging my life around a feeling." I watched her hands as she spoke. How they opened, then closed again. "I didn't want to be the person who confuses attention with salvation," she continued. "Or turns someone into a chapter they didn't consent to." "I wasn't confused," I said. "I know," she said. "That doesn't mean I wasn't." Silence stretched. Not heavy, just full. "I should have said something sooner," she added. "Instead of disappearing." "Yes," I said. Then softer. "That part hurt." She nodded once. Took it. "I'm sorry." The words landed cleanly. No excuses trailing behind them. I leaned against the opposite counter. The space between us stayed open, deliberate. "I almost texted you," I said. "A lot of times." "I know," she said. "You couldn't," I said. She looked at me then. Really looked. The carefulness was still there, but something else too. Relief, maybe. Or acceptance. "I came today because I didn't want to leave this building," she said, "without knowing whether you'd rather I stayed quiet or honest." "And?" I asked. She inhaled. Slow. Steadying. "I think about you," she said. "More than is sensible. More than is fair. I don't know what that would have turned into if we'd let it. I just know it mattered." My chest tightened. Not painfully. Just enough to register. "It mattered to me too," I said. "Even like this." She smiled at that. Small. Grateful. "I'm not asking you for anything," she said. "Not time. Not patience. Not forgiveness." "What are you asking for?" I asked. She considered. "Permission to not pretend it was nothing." I nodded. "You have that." We stood there, the conversation thinning naturally, like it had reached its limit without forcing an ending. She moved toward the door. Stopped. "I don't regret meeting you," she said again. "I regret the parts one didn't know how to hold." "I think," I said, choosing carefully, "we held what we could." She opened the door. The hallway light flickered on, casting both of us in the same pale glow. Before she stepped out, she reached for my hand. Not dramatic, just a quiet touch. Her thumb pressed once against my knuckles, like punctuation. "Okay," she said. "Okay," I said. She smiled, real this time, and let go. I watched her walk down the hall, not rushing, not looking back. When the door closed, the apartment felt exactly like it had before. And somehow, completely different. Time didn't fix things. It just softened the edges enough that we could touch them again without bleeding. The building sold. Slowly. Paperwork stretched. Deadlines moved. People said things like end of quarter and after inspections. Life stayed inconvenient in small, survivable ways. I didn't move out right away. Neither did she. Weeks passed where we didn't talk beyond necessity. Then one morning, 8:47 a.m., because I remember noticing the time, she knocked on my door again. No envelope this time. Just a mug in each hand. "I made too much," she said. "Black coffee. I forgot you don't take sugar." I stood there longer than needed, then stepped aside. "Come in," I said. Not because I owed her space. Because I wanted to share it. We didn't talk about us. Not then. We talked about how the streetlight across the road had finally been fixed. About how the grocery store bread had gotten worse. About how the bench by the store was still loose on one side. Normal things. Reentry things. After that, it became gentle. Tea some evenings. Coffee some mornings. Always at inconvenient times. Always unplanned. She stopped knocking like a guest and started knocking like someone who expected an answer. I stopped pretending my door wasn't already half open. We sat on the bench again one afternoon, months after the night that almost broke us. Same place. Different weather. She leaned back this time. Comfortable. "You ever think about that night?" she asked. "Sometimes," I said. Not in a painful way. "Me neither." Her knee touched mine. Stayed there. No apology. She still went to therapy. I still folded my laundry slowly. Some habits didn't need fixing. They just needed company. People noticed. Not dramatically. A glance from the neighbor. A pause in conversation. Her son visited once and looked at us with quiet calculation. She didn't explain. He didn't ask. Later, she told me he hugged her longer than usual when he left. "I think he's relieved," she said. "So am I said. We never announced anything. There was no conversation where things became official. We just started ending up in the same places on purpose. Mornings, sometimes. Evenings, often. Nights, occasionally, when the building felt too quiet without another heartbeat in it. She moved out before the final sale closed. Found a smaller place across town. I helped her carry boxes. She teased me for labeling things too specifically. Kitchen, not cups, the other stuff. I stayed. Different building owner. Same windows. Same light. I didn't feel abandoned. That surprised me. She left a spare mug at my place. I left a jacket at hers. We returned them, then stopped bothering. One night, sitting at her table, she reached across and took my hand like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "No question. No test. This is slower than people expect," she said. "I like slow," I said. She smiled. "Me too." Now, we still had limits. Still had pauses. Sometimes she went quiet, and I didn't chase. Sometimes I overthought, and she let me. We learned the difference between space and distance. On Tuesdays, I stopped going to the laundromat. She did too. We bought a small washer together. Used, loud, imperfect. It rattled during spin cycles like it was reminding us of where we'd started. Some nights, we drank tea. Some mornings, black coffee. Always mismatched mugs. One evening, months later, sitting on her couch, she said, "You know, if we'd rushed this, it would have broken." "I know," I said. "And if we hadn't tried at all," she added, "we'd still be wondering." She leaned her head against my shoulder. Just rested it there. No weight. No performance. That felt like the ending we'd earned. Not fireworks. Not promises shouted into the future. Just two people who'd learned how to stay.